I pulled the van into the driveway. Pale moonlight lay across the house before us, a much larger house than Bones and I had ever lived in. The man that lives in this house is about to be kidnapped and tortured. What his life must have been like before tonight. All this for a piece of jewelry? A white moth flew in through my window and landed on the back of my hand. I raised my other hand to smash it. It flapped its white and fluffy wings, then stilled. The moth stared at me. What goes through a little creature's mind? Does it know it's about to be smashed? I put my hand down. The little beast flew out my window. "What the fuck was that?" Bones asked. I didn't want to make a mess. I grabbed my mask and hesitated a moment. You know, if all goes well, we should make enough money to... Oh, here you go again. Bones looked at me and shook his head. Go ahead and pretend you don't love this. But I'm going to do this shit forever. We're going to do this shit forever. He hit himself a few times, then put on his mask. Scar, let's do this. Madness ruled Bones at the best of times and the worst of times, and, well, always. He chose a plain white mask. I had a similar mask, except I wrapped mine in brown leather. I pulled it over my face. Warmth rolled over my skin. It covered all my scars. Sure, let's go. For one last adventure. Right, one last adventure, like last time and the time before that. You know, the way we're doing all this for a ring, I feel like Frodo and you're my fucked up Sam. Except you have long, greasy hair, I said. Does Sam like making people scream? Bones asked. He stared at me with genuine curiosity in his eyes. Let's go. I stepped out of the van. The cool night air bit at my neck and wrists. Crickets chirped their song. Us, the crickets, and whoever lived in this big-ass house were the only living things around for miles. Stained glass windows bookended the front doors. Bones smashed in the right window with his sledgehammer, reached inside and unlocked the door. He overdoes everything. I pulled the door open. We both stood there for a moment, listening. Bones looked at me. You were right. No alarms. We entered the house. A strong scent of copper hit me. Did someone get to him first? Doorways to dark rooms stood on either side of us. A long hallway with red carpet and dusty picture frames led straight ahead. The only light came from a large fireplace in a room at the end of the hall. Music echoed through the house. It sounded like classical piano, something slow and somber. I tried to look at some of the pictures I passed in the hall, but each time I spared a glance, could only make out a distorted face and white eyes. The dark plays tricks on us all. Some weren't pictures at all. Red paintings on white canvas. Are those supposed to be faces too? I entered the room at the end of the hall. The ceiling rose high above. Black paint covered the walls. The fireplace looked even more grandiose up close. Above the flames hung a painting of two black, bat-like creatures engulfed in red. The wood smoke, a welcome change of smell. Mr. Oakwood, the target, sat in a large black chair and wore a red robe. His back faced us. I put my hand on the base of the record player and slid it off the marble table it sat on. The box crashed to the floor. The music stopped. Mr. Oakwood didn't flinch. He continued to stare into the fire. I walked in front of him. Bones stood before the chair, moist rag in hand. Mr. Oakwood, we're going to take a little trip, I said. Liquid dropped on my shoulder. a bead of red ink rolled away from one of the bat-like creatures and leaked onto me. Did he just paint this? The ink isn't dry. He looked up at me. You could still leave. His eyes not quite black or brown, but shadow. The firelight reflected in these bottomless pits. Bones covered Mr. Oakwood's nose and mouth with a rag. The man continued to look up at me. The flames died down in his eyes. I turned and looked behind me. Smoke took the place of a fire. A chill ran across my forearm. After a few moments, his eyes closed. Bones let him fall back into his chair. Why didn't he struggle? Bones asked. I shrugged. Let's tie him up. We tied his wrists and ankles. I heaved the man over my shoulder, as I usually did. I had size and strength. Bones stood tall and scrawny, but every ounce of his being begged for violence. I drove us up into the woods. His house had no neighbors, but I always liked questioning people in a place they weren't familiar with. I guess that's just a me thing. A layer of dirt covered most of the pavement up the winding hills. The trees grew close to the road. Branches smacked the side of the van a few times. I tried to look straight ahead, eyes on the road. Every time I stole a glance into the trees, I could see the same distorted faces with white eyes staring back at me. The dark plays tricks on us all. I kept my mask on. No one could truly see me with it on. Meanwhile, Bones took his mask off as soon as he sat back in the van. At the end of the road and the top of the mountain sat a cabin with red walls and a black roof. When Bones and I first looked through it, we determined it must be for vacation use. The cabin had been well taken care of, but it lacked food or any other sort of supplies. We brought Mr. Oakwood inside, tied him to a chair, and set up our tools with only moonlight pouring in from the open doorway. I arranged 3 tools, a pistol, pliers, and a straight razor, from biggest to smallest, on a wooden table. Bones spilled his tools, a sledgehammer, a claw hammer, a machete, and an axe. On the counter across the room, red paint covered the cabin walls, on the inside, just like the outside. A single light hung from the middle of the ceiling. I pulled the chain and the yellow light clicked on. Mr. Oakwood appeared sitting tied to a chair underneath the light. He stared up at me, then at Bones. Bones smiled at Mr. Oakwood, showing all his teeth. I pulled off my mask. Let him see my scars now. Let him really see me. This is when they usually open their mouth or shy away or just look sad. Not Mr. Oakwood. He stared back at me, and I don't know what that expression was. Curiosity? Hunger? Like a bear staring at a honey pot. When you torture people, that's not the look they're supposed to give you. We have a real simple question, Mr. Oakwood. You answer, and you can survive tonight. The yellow light flickered. Oh, but, boys, no one will be surviving tonight, Mr. Oakwood said. His eyes must not be able to blink, arrogant bastard. So that's his strategy. The arrogant ones break down as fast as any of the others. He looked again from me to Bones. Bones punched him in the jaw, then grabbed him by his hair, pulling his head back. Mr. Oakwood didn't seem to react. Bones pressed his face to Mr. Oakwood's ear. You're going to tell us where that fucking ring is. I'll gladly tell you where the ring is. Good. Maybe tonight could just be a conversation. Where is it? I asked. Bones let him go and backed up a step, the disappointment clear on his face. Bones would rather make people scream than beat them to death rather than finish the job. I kept him on task, most of the time. A white moth fluttered beneath the golden light just above Mr. Oakwood's head. He took notice for a moment before fixing his gaze on me. Did it hitch a ride with us? No, we're in the middle of the woods. There's probably a bunch out here. You boys aren't from around here, are you? Don't answer. I know you're not. Did you notice how there weren't many houses near mine? I live at the edge of those woods. The locals know a man, well, maybe more than a man, a being who lives on this mountain. Some say he has antlers and goat legs and wears a black cloak. He's gonna waste our time with this shit? Bones asked. He started scratching at his skin. Bones is impatient tonight. We have all night. I want to hear this, I said. I've heard a lot of strange tales about the ring we're about to acquire, and I want to know all the lore around it. I'm into strange shit like that. Some say he's the devil himself. The dim light flickered again. For a moment, and only a moment, Mr. Oakwood's eyes turned black. No, that can't be right. He takes people who enter his woods, so no one does. That's why there's only one cabin in these woods. It sits near the top of the mountain. Red walls with a black roof. His cabin. That's where you've taken us. Locals would have never come here. Great observation. You know the mountain you live on. Where's the ring? I asked. First, more observations. You cover your scars until you stand before someone tied down like me because you're insecure. But you think this circumstance makes you powerful enough to overcome that. You took off your mask here because you think you're in control, Mr. Oakwood said. And you? He nodded towards Bones. Sometime when you were small and weak, you had violence put in you, and ever since, you've been trying to give it away to other people. But that's not something you could give away. No more than you could get rid of fire by handing it to someone else. It only spreads. Stop stalling. I don't care if you can relate. Bones picked up the hammer. You want us to hear your sob story? I don't give a shit. Bones slammed the claw of the hammer down on the back of Mr. Oakwood's hand. Bones cracked. Blood ran free. There's that copper smell again. Mr. Oakwood looked up at Bones straight into his eyes. Relate? No. I was never weak. He isn't arrogant. He's crazy. A flash of lightning struck just outside a window. Thunder shook the cabin, and the lights turned out. Fuck! Is the power out? Bones asked. I pulled the chain for light twice. The light clicked back on. That light's going to be a real problem. You boys might want to start a fire, Mr. Oakwood said. The white moth flew in front of my face. I shooed it away. You boys aren't very bright, are you? Clearly you two are the dumbest living things in this town. You traveled all the way not knowing anything about the place you were going, but you thought you'd outsmart me. Nonsense. I slammed my fist into his ribs and felt one crack. The moth flew in front of my face one last time, then burst into a tiny cloud of glittery white powder. Mr. Oakwood's thin line of a mouth curled upwards into a smirk. Now, you can't leave. The ink is dry. The wind picked up outside, howling and smacking into the cabin walls. Slow and steady, he tilted his head to look past me to the front door. You boys hear that? He asked. Enough games. I pulled out my straight razor. I dragged the blade across his cheekbone, His wound frowned, parted a little, and drooled out some crimson. He didn't blink. He continued to stare at the front door. I slid my razor across his chest. He closed his eyes. I cut across his shoulders and slashed a few times across his face. His blood rained on the cabin floor, appearing black under the dim light. Outside, a sound like metal scraping against metal stole my attention. None of the windows faced the front of the cabin, so we could only listen. Then, 2 loud knocks shook the door. Mr. Oakwood's eyes snapped open, staring straight into mine. Now, the fun starts. Bones grabbed his machete. I picked up my pistol from the table. I grabbed the door handle. We looked at each other for a moment. There was no amount of violence we weren't ready for. I cracked the door open with one hand. A loud crash like glass shattering made us jump back for a moment. Then, I opened the door all the way. Bones stalked out with his machete. I followed. The light from the 2 LEDs on the outside of the cabin stretched out and died around the edge of our van. The darkness seemed to push back against it. Past that, the shape of trees stood in darkness. The shadows rolled closer to us. Our van vanished under their weight. Bones wrapped a rag around the tip of his machete. The LEDs gave out. We sat in darkness, surrounded by silhouettes. A silhouette of our van, outlines of the trees leaned and shifted around us. He sparked his lighter and a flame grew on his machete's edge. The warmth hit me in the face. Yellow and orange light undulated across the small clearing. Darkness crawled back and showed us our van. All 4 tires popped. 2 long and deep scratches ran along the side of the steel. The front window had been shattered. Bones' mask, now snapped in half, lay in the dirt before us. "Who the fuck did this?" Bones asked. He looked out into the darkness. I clicked the safety off my gun. "Stay close. Don't run off into the woods." "I think I see something. There!" Bones leaned towards the tree line. I stood next to him, aiming my pistol at the darkness. Then I saw it. A pale face barely visible in the shadows between the trees. White eyes and... horns? "Who the fuck are you?" Bones pointed his machete at the being. It moved, and I fired 3 shots. The thing flew straight up and disappeared into the treetops. "What the fuck was that?" Bones asked. I grabbed him by the shoulder and pulled him away from the tree line. The dark seems to reach out to us. The light in the clearing in front of the cabin shrank back, then turned off. For a moment, I could see them all. Barely visible faces, horned heads, white eyes all around us. They disappeared with the return of the light. Bones turned one way, then the other, like he tried to keep his eyes on all the leaves of the forest all at once. We're outnumbered. "Back inside, now!" I pulled on Bones' shirt, and he didn't hesitate. Once inside, I slammed the door closed. For the first time, I noticed 2 wooden fixtures on the door, meant to hold a piece of wood to bar the door shut. I dropped a 2x4 in the slot. "Scar?" Bones said. He tapped me on the shoulder. I looked around the cabin. Mr. Oakwood sat under the hanging yellow light. But that was the only thing that remained the same since we walked outside. Mr. Oakwood now wore a black suit and black shoes. Instead of a small fireplace, a grandiose one, exactly like the one from Mr. Oakwood's house, had taken its place. The heat from the roaring fire reached out to me. The huge painting of 2 bat-like creatures, engulfed in red, hung above the fireplace, no longer dripping. A staircase on each side of the room led up to the second-floor balcony. On the second floor, 3 closed doors faced us. I grabbed my mask and put it back on. Safe. I'm safe. It wasn't like this, right? There wasn't a second floor here before, Bones asked. One by one, the slices all over Mr. Oakwood's body pulled up at their edges, creating a smile. Then each wound began to spread wide. 1,000 sickly smiles screamed at us. Mr. Oakwood began laughing over the screams. We fell backwards, scrambling to grab the bar at the front door. Pounding erupted from the other side of the door and on the walls all over the cabin. "What is this place?" I shouted. Everything fell silent at once. "Well, Devin, what makes you think something is wrong?" Mr. Oakwood asked me. "Who's Devin?" Bones looked at me. "No idea." "How does he know my name? No one has called me that in years." "What? Did you really expect me to call you Scar? Like you're some fucking Disney villain? You're an adult. Have a real fucking name." Mr. Oakwood glared at me. The flames roared behind him. Bones grabbed his mallet off the table and slammed it into Mr. Oakwood's chest. No response. Bones swung again, this time aiming for his head. The mallet crashed against Mr. Oakwood's forehead and whipped his head back. A piece of his skull broke off and fell onto the floor, shattering like glass on impact. The missing piece revealed another skull beneath, this one with a horn. He wore the rest of his face like a mask that didn't quite fit right. The light turned off and the flame in the fireplace died. Mr. Oakwood started screaming. His voice shook the walls and shattered the windows. Blue flames roared back up, illuminating the room. Bones ran at Mr. Oakwood with an axe. He hacked straight into Mr. Oakwood's chest. Blood exploded back onto Bones' face. He hacked him again. Mr. Oakwood only stared at Bones in response. In a dark corner on Bones' side of the room, a small gray TV flicked on, static filling the screen. Bones halted. "That's my childhood TV." He turned around, and an older, thick-set man rocked in a beat-up recliner. No, you're dead. I made sure of it." Bones walked towards the rocking man. His side of the room fell into darkness. In front of me, a gray spotlight shined onto my mother. "You filthy little thing. Come here and get another mark. You've earned it." She reached out and swung the razor at me. I flinched and closed my eyes. When I opened them, she vanished. Bones sat on the floor, clutching his axe. His father had vanished too. Bones stared up at the second floor. The doors that faced us were all open now, all filled with distorted faces and white eyes. "Okay, I think you boys are ready for the ring," Mr. Oakwood said. Neither of us said a word. "It's been right in front of your face this whole time. It's in the light bulb. No longer tied to anything." He pointed up. Sure enough, a golden ring with a black inscription somehow hung in the middle of the light bulb, glowing. Bones shattered the light bulb with his hammer. The ring bounced on the floor, its gold shining in the firelight. Bones scooped it up and put it on his finger. "It's supposed to grant each person who wears it one wish, right? Well, I wish to make this motherfucker die!" Mr. Oakwood laughed. "If that's what the ring did, why would I ever let you morons have it? Playtime is over, boys." He reached his hand towards Bones, and horns jutted out from his palm. More kept coming out by the second. The tip of antlers tore into Bones's face and lifted him from the ground and pinned him to the wall above the door. The last bit of bone left Oakwood's palm and joined the rest of the antlers, snaking their way into Bones's body. Some bits jutted out of his stomach, his thigh. He even had a horn coming out of his eye. Bones' hands fell limp by his side, and the ring fell to the ground again. My heart raced. I ran and picked up the ring and put it on. I want to leave this forest. What? I just explained to you that it doesn't grant wishes like that. I was going to make you put it on anyway, because whoever wears a piece of my jewelry, even for a moment, their soul belongs to me, and they must do what I say and follow my beasts for all eternity. So, now that you've worn it for a whole second, I'll be taking that back. He reached his hand towards me. I clenched my fist. The pull of the ring snapped my finger back, tearing the joint. The ring flew into Mr. Oakwood's outstretched palm. No, not like this. I want to escape, I said again, while clutching my hand. Mr. Oakwood reached out his hand towards me again, and horns extended out until they crashed into my abdomen. They burst back out of my chest and face. Out of each scar, a horn. My mask snapped and fell away. I screamed, and so did Bones. We screamed and screamed until we didn't. I don't know how long it had been, but only Bones and I remained in the room. Bones curled up in a ball on the floor. I walked to the front door and opened it. The full moon bathed the forest in a deep red. I stepped outside. An enormous rush of wind hit me. Wings beating? Above me flew the silhouette of a beast larger than a house, with horns and bat wings. It roared under the light of the moon. I quivered. I tried to fight the urge, but still, I answered its call, screaming out. Wings tore out from my back, and soon I flew along its path, Bones right behind me. Around the treetops, 20 to 30 more just like us flew under the beast. Ever since that night, I've roamed the woods. Every forest has its monsters, and every tree big enough to have a shadow has secrets. Anytime you look to the shadows, beyond the trees, you might just see us, waiting for you. Or maybe not. Maybe it's nothing. After all, the dark plays tricks on us all.